All right, Wallace, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great. We're going to go ahead and get started. I want to welcome you to our training on Louisiana's bullying prevention law. This law applies to all public school students, regular education, and special education. However, there are significant implications that need to be considered when a student with a disability is involved. To ensure this training is helpful and relevant to you, we're going to be doing a few interactive activities, and I'm going to ask you to complete an evaluation at the end. The evaluation results help us continuously improve training. It's going to take you less than 2 minutes to complete the evaluation. Everyone completing an evaluation will get a copy of the PowerPoint and any handouts we refer to, and a list of website resources. If you need a certificate of attendance for training hours or something like that, email us, let us know, and we can make sure that you get that. If at any time you lose audio or video, I noticed on Zoom, if you wait just like less than a minute, it usually links back up. If it doesn't, you can call in using the phone number that was in your registration confirmation, or you can just click the link back to get back into the webinar. We encourage you to submit questions in the chat box. We're going to have a Q&A time at the end of the training, and you can wait till then. But if you're like me, you want to get your questions in there while they're hot on your mind. I'm Melinda Elliott. I'm your presenter for this training, Louisiana Bullying Prevention Law. My co-host who makes everything run smoothly is Wallace Johnson. He's another one of the education specialists here. Before we begin, I want to give you a little bit of information about Families Helping Families. Families Helping Families of Southwest Louisiana is one of 10 nonprofit family resource centers in the Families Helping Families network of centers. We're here to provide support to parents of children, youth, and adults with disabilities or special health care needs. We do this through individual assistance, information sharing, outreach, and trainings. Families Helping Families of Southwest Louisiana provides webinars and in-person trainings on special education and disability-related topics. We invite you to check our website and our Facebook page for our events. Our website is www.FHFSWLA.org. But check those out regularly and register for any upcoming training that you're interested in. You can request specific trainings that aren't currently being offered on your evaluation. Put it in one of those blank spaces. Um, Even if it's something that we haven't offered before, if you're interested in it, someone else is probably interested in it too. So please put it on the form. So I am lucky at Families Helping Families. Not only do I work in education, but I work with an organization, a group, a grassroots network of people. And the network's name is LACAN, Louisiana Citizens. No, Louisiana Council's Advocacy Network. Too many acronyms, you guys. Um, there are 10 LDH regions, and we have a person in every region. Now, the first person you're going to see on that slide actually covers two regions, 1 and 10. We're smack dab in the middle in Region 5. But if you're on here and you're not from this region, there's a person assigned to your area. And we do a variety of things. We are actually going to be, well, the DD Council is actually going to be looking at the information that we've gathered this summer to come up with a legislative agenda that will happen tomorrow. And then it's a committee, so they'll take it to the Louisiana Disabilities Council to come up with a final agenda. But we do this every year. Um, we also just here lately have started taking up some national issues. So there is actually an action alert out. If I know Wallace, he has already dropped the link for you to join. Lacan. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. You're agreeing to get the emails, the action alerts. The one that's the very first one of our year uh, is about the Office of Special Education programs being shut down over the weekend. Uh, you're going to learn more than you ever thought you were going to learn about developmental disabilities and special education if you get those alerts. Of course, I'm hoping that you're going to go ahead and take action on those alerts. And then there's a bunch of other activities. Y'all will be able to read this later. But I think Wallace is even dropping the link to the action alert in the chat if you want to see it. So, where am I? Okay, let's do a quick activity. Make sure everybody's listening and can answer, can use the chat. What's your favorite snack? Put it in the chat box. My favorite snack is plain ordinary potato chips. What about you? Do we have any answers, Wallace?
We have fruit, French fries, pretzels, Nutter Butters, nacho cheese Doritos. Depends on the day. That's what someone said. And then they also put in there double stuffed Oreos, candy, red, delicious apples with cinnamon, nothing but cakes, red velvet, chips. So we got a lot of good ones. Ooh, ice cream. Ooh, yeah. Ritz crackers, Ritz cheese crackers. You're muted, Melinda.
My Zoom had ended and it linked back up. But thank you for letting everybody know all the snacks. I appreciate it, Wallace, because I was out of there for a minute. Okay, so let's go back to the learning goals. After this training on Louisiana bullying prevention law, I hope you're going to have an improved understanding of frequently used acronyms and the history of bullying prevention guidance and legislation for students with disabilities. And I hope you'll be able to recognize what is and isn't bullying and maybe some bullying statistics. I hope you're going to be more knowledgeable about Louisiana Act 861, which is the Louisiana Bullying legislation and the guidance provided by the Louisiana Department of Education. Finally, I hope to increase your awareness of some bullying prevention things you can do with your child and how the IEP team should be used in bullying prevention. Let's look at some of those acronyms. We're going to use these frequently in the presentation. I'm going to try to say the full term and the acronym. Sometimes I might go back and forth, sometimes I might forget, but here's a list to start with. OSERS, the Office of Special Education and Rehabilitation Services. It's located, or it was located, in the United States Department of Education. IDEA is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. That's the federal special education law that guarantees FAPE, free appropriate public education, to all qualifying students with disabilities. That law still exists, even if OSERS has been closed. FAPE, the free appropriate public education, is the cornerstone of IDEA. IEP is the individualized education program. That's an agreement the parent and the school makes on how to educate a child with a disability. OCR is the Office of Civil Rights. That's also located in the United States Department of Education. OCR is charged with investigating complaints related to discrimination. And then LDE, LDOE is the Louisiana Department of Education. That's the top educational entity for our state. Let's look at some historical information that help you understand where we are today. On October 26, 2010, the United States Department of Education Office of Civil Rights issued what they called a Dear Colleague letter, providing guidance to the State Department of Education and local school districts on steps to reduce bullying in schools. The statutes that OCR, so the Office of Civil Rights enforces, includes Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, color, or national origin. And then Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972, which prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex. And 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, and Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990. Section 504 and Title II prohibit discrimination on the basis of disability. School districts may violate these civil rights statutes and the department's implementing regulations when peer harassment based on race, color, national origin, sex, or disability is sufficiently serious that it creates a hostile environment, and such harassment is encouraged, tolerated, or not adequately addressed or ignored by school employees. School personnel who understand their legal obligations to address harassment under these laws are in the best position to prevent it from occurring and to respond appropriately. In the 2012 Regular Session Act 861, that's the Louisiana Regular Session, was passed, and it requires the Louisiana Department of Education, in collaboration with BESSI, to develop procedures and regulations with regard to proper reporting and investigating of an incident of bullying. Those procedures include, but aren't limited to, adoption of BESSI approved forms for reporting and investigating incidences of alleged bullying, then proper parent notification, and mandatory orientation that is supposed to be provided to staff, students, and parents. It also provides parents and legal guardians the right to appeal when a timely and effective investigation has not been conducted. The following year, on August 20th, 2013, the United States Department of Education Office of Special Education and Rehabilitative Services issued a guidance letter to states about what school district responsibilities under IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, is to address bullying of students with disabilities. The letter stated in part, bullying of a student with a disability that results in the student not receiving meaningful educational benefit constitutes a denial of a free, appropriate public education, or FAPE, under IDEA that must be remedied. However, even when those situations do not rise to a level that constitutes a denial of FAPE, bullying can undermine a student's ability to achieve to his or her full potential. Finally, in 2014, OCR issued a final Dear Colleague letter reaffirming the previous guidance and pointing out that they're receiving ever-increasing number of complaints concerning bullying of students with disabilities and the effects of that bullying on their education. Bullying doesn't have any boundaries. It occurs in elementary, middle, and high school campuses and communities. There's no single profile of a child involved in bullying. They can be well connected socially or marginalized. Children of all socioeconomic classes, genders, and races are bullied. According to Oser's letter, a child with a disability is disproportionately bullied more than a child without a disability. Bullying affects all youth. Those that are bullied, those who are doing the bullying, and those who are witnessing the bullying. Let's talk a little bit about what bullying is and isn't. Bullying is an intentional behavior that hurts, harms, or humiliates a student, either physically or emotionally, and that can happen while at school, in the community, or online. Those bullying often have more social or physical power, while those targeted have difficulty stopping the behavior. The behavior is typically repeated. Students often describe bullying as when someone makes you feel less about who you are as a person. Bullying is different than someone just being mean. Someone just being mean may call you a name or push you, but it's more isolated and not repeated. Additionally, being rude or arguing with someone isn't bullying. Data sources from the Indicators of School Crime and Safety, National Center for Education Statistics, and Bureau of Justice 2019 report reported bullying is still a problem on school campuses. The report provided the following statistics. 20% of students ages 12 to 18 experienced bullying nationwide. Students aged 12 to 18 who reported being bullied said they thought those who bullied them, one, had the ability to influence other students' perception of them. I was at 56%. Had more social influence, half of the students, were physically stronger or larger, 40%, and had more money, 31%. Nationwide, 19% of students in ages 12 to 18 report being bullied on school property in the 12 months prior to the report. The following percentage of students had experienced bullying in various places at school. So the hallway or the stairwell, 43%. The classroom, 42%, which I find surprising. The cafeteria, 26%. Outside on school grounds, 21%. Online or text, 15%. The bathroom or locker room, 12%. And then somewhere else in the school building, another 2%. Among students 12 through 18 who reported being bullied at school during the school year, 15% were bullied online or by text. Then, this is another interesting, surprising one. 21% of tweens between the ages of 9 and 12 have been cyberbullied. Students between 12 and 18 reported experiencing various types of bullying, including 13% were the subject of rumors or lies, 13% were made fun of, called names, or insulted, 5% were pushed, shoved, tripped, or spit on, 5% were left out or excluded on purpose, 4% were threatened with harm, 2% reported others tried to make them do things that they didn't want to do, and 2% reported property was destroyed on purpose. Let's look at what is being reported in various reports and studies in regards to students with being bullied. Students with specific learning disabilities, autism spectrum disorder, emotional and behavior disorders, other health impairments, and speech or language impairments report greater rates of victimization than their peers without disabilities longitudinally. I sure hope I said that right. And their victimization remains consistent over time. Then, researchers discovered that students with disabilities were more worried about school safety and being injured or harassed by other peers compared to students without a disability. Then finally, when reporting bullying youth in special education, we're told not to tattle twice as often as youth not in special education. It's another one that surprises me. If you report bullying, you're a tattle. A lot of research has been done with children 12 and older, but I think we can safely say that children just don't start bullying or becoming bullied at the age of 12. I'd like to think about what the statistics might look like for younger children. Was your child bullied at a younger age? Have you witnessed younger students being bullied? So, y'all chat me up because I'm curious. Did anybody know anybody that was bullied?
Hey, I'm looking at the chat and I don't see anything yet. But I know when I was in school, um, I guess about middle school and time, I was bullied, but I didn't know I was being bullied.
Right.
And then I learned when I got older that I actually was being bullied. But at the time that was happening, I really didn't know how to handle it either, being in middle school. I didn't want to tattle, but I wanted to be cool too, with the
Mm-hmm.
others that was doing the bullying. So I didn't know the right way to respond to their questions either because I was a little confused. Should I say this or should I say that? If I say that, am I saying the wrong thing? So I know I definitely experienced it, definitely in middle school.
And
Oh, here we go.
I find bullying is hard for people to talk about. Even older people that were bullied in the school have problems talking about it now, you know?
Hmm. And somebody says in the chat, yes, becoming more common in the younger generation,
Oh, yeah.
especially in Head Start to the third grade.
Wow.
And then someone saying, else has said, yes, becoming in pre-K through third common. And then someone else says, higher than today, we just handle things differently. Nothing like threatening or altering. So that's true too, because there's a lot of other threats and things that we didn't face, like threats of school shootings and things like that. That kind of violence is like escalated. And we didn't even face that when we were in school,
Right.
not to that degree.
Right.
Okay, anybody else have any comments they want to say in the chat before we move on?
All right. To address the bullying concerns in Louisiana, Act 861 of 2012. So if you go back and look for this act, remember you have to look in 2012, by the way. But it was passed by Louisiana legislators authorizing the State Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, BESSE, in collaboration with the State Department of Education to develop and adopt rules and regulations on bullying prevention. The procedures and processes must include at a minimum one, adopt a student code of conduct. Do y'all get those? Incorporate the code of conduct a policy prohibiting bullying. Do you know if it's in there? Define bullying. Develop and adopt procedures and processes for reporting and investigating bullying. Parental responsibilities. So let's look at how Louisiana Department of Education and BESSE address those requirements. Let's start with that definition about what bullying is. Louisiana Department of Education uses the same definition for bullying that's included in Act 861. Act 861 defines bullying as a pattern of any one or more of the following: gestures, including but not limited to obscene gestures and making faces, written, electronic, or verbal communications, included but not limited to calling names, threatening harm, taunting, malicious teasing, or spreading untrue rumors. Electronic communication includes but is not limited to communication or image transmitted by email, instant message, text message, blog, or social network website through the use of a telephone, mobile phone, pager, computer, or any other electronic device. And then three, it includes physical acts, including but not limited to hitting, kicking, pushing, tripping, choking, damaging personal property, or unauthorized use of personal property. And then four, repeatedly and purposefully shunning or excluding from activities. And then five, where there where the pattern of behavior as provided by paragraph 1 of this subsection is exhibited toward a student more than once by another student or group of students and occurs or is received by a student while on school property, at a school sponsored or school related function or activity, in a school bus or van, at any designated school bus stop, and any other school or private vehicle used to transport students to and from school, or any school sponsored activity or event. And the pattern of behavior must have the effect of physically harming a student, placing the student in reasonable fear of physical harm, damaging a student's property, placing the student in reasonable fear of damage to their property, or must be sufficiently severe, persistent, and pervasive enough to either create an intimidating or threatening educational environment, have the effect of substantially interfering with the student's performance, or have the effect of substantially disrupting the orderly operation of school. They tried their very best to cover all their bases when this law was put together, especially about technology coming up that we just don't aren't aware of yet. So the school district must review the student code of conduct and amend it as necessary. There's usually a booklet that they send home at the beginning of school, and in that booklet it's going to have stuff about the student code of conduct. But anyway, they review it and amend it as necessary to assure the policy prohibits bullying to include the definition, specifically address behaviors constituting bullying, the effect of the behavior on others, including bystanders, and the disciplinary and criminal consequences of bullying. Each school district has to provide notice to students and parents of the policy prohibiting bullying of a student by another student, including the definition. The policy must be included in the code of conduct. Each school district must inform students orally and in writing at the orientation required under the statutes of the prohibition against bullying and the nature and consequences of such action, including potential criminal consequences and loss of driver's license. The proper process and procedures for reporting any incidents, including bullying. A written copy of the notice must be delivered to each student's parent or legal guardian. So, schools are supposed to establish how an act of bullying can be reported. The Louisiana Department of Education requires the principal or designee of each school in the school district must establish and prominently publicize to all students, staff, volunteers, and parents or legal guardians how a report of bullying may be filed and how that report will be acted upon. The form developed by the Louisiana Department of Education must be accepted as a report of bullying. The form can also be used to record a verbal report. All reports are supposed to remain confidential. The principal or designee is responsible for receiving complaints alleging violations of bullying policy. All school employees, parent chaperoning, or supervising school sponsored functions and events are required to report alleged violations of this policy to the principal or the principal's designee. A verbal report must be reported on the same day as the employee or parents witnessed or otherwise learned of the incident, and a written report must be filed no later than 2 days after that. The victim of bullying, anyone who witnessed the bullying, and anyone who has credible information that an act of bullying has taken place may file a report of bullying. Retaliation against any person who reports bullying in good faith, who is thought to have reported bullying, who files a complaint, or who otherwise participates in an investigation or inquiry concerning an allegation of bullying, is prohibited conduct and is subject to disciplinary measures. Intentionally making false reports about bullying to school officials is prohibited and will result in disciplinary actions. So, investigating an act of bullying is an important part of the process. Here's the guidelines that the school system should be using to investigate an act of bullying. The principal or designee of the school must initiate the investigation the next business day during which school is in session after the report is received by a school official. The investigation must be completed no later than 10 days after the date the written report was submitted. The investigation must include an interview of the reporter, victim, alleged bully, and any witnesses, and include obtaining copies or photographs of any audiovisual evidence. The parent or the designee must notify the parent or legal guardian of a student under the age of 18 of the allegation of bullying before the student can be interviewed, and inform the parent of their right to attend the interview with their student. Documented interviews of the victim, alleged offender, and witnesses must be conducted privately, separately, and confidentially. At no time will the alleged offender and victim be interviewed together. That's an important one. The investigator will collect and evaluate the facts using the form developed by the Louisiana Department of Education. The principal or designee may, in accordance with Act 861 of 2012, file a complaint with the Court of Juvenile Jurisdiction pursuant to the Children's Code Article 730 and 731, or the Children's Code Article 731 if the parent or legal guardian refuses to attend a conference or meeting regarding the student's behavior. The highest level of confidentiality possible must be upheld regarding the submission of a complaint or a report of bullying and the investigative procedures that follow. Both the victim and alleged offender's parents will meet with the school principal or designee. Meetings with the parents or legal guardians of the victim and meetings with parents or legal guardians of the alleged offender must be separate. Parents or legal guardians of the victim and alleged offender must be informed of all available potential consequences, penalties, and counseling options at the meeting with school officials. And then Act 861 further states, in any case where a teacher, principal, or other school employee is authorized in this section to require the parent or legal guardian of a student who is under the age of 18 and not judicially emancipated or emancipated by marriage to attend a conference or meeting regarding the student's behavior, and after notice the parent, tutor, or legal guardian willfully refuses to attend, that principal or designee shall file a complaint with the court exercising juvenile jurisdiction according to the children's code that I told you about. Um, let's see. The principal and designee will promptly notify the parent and legal guardians of all students involved of any incident of bullying as defined by this policy. Notification of the parent, legal guardian of all students involved must be made under the same day an investigation of the incidents has been initiated. Notification must be consistent with student privacy rights under the applicable provisions of, it's called FERPA, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act of 1974. Once the investigation is resolved, the following must occur. The principal or designee shall compose a written document containing the findings of the bullying investigation, including input from the student's parents, legal guardian, and the decision of the school or the school system official. The document will be placed in the record of both students. The principal or designee shall promptly notify the complainant of the finding of the investigation and remedial action taken if the release of information doesn't violate the law. If the school has determined the discipline code has been violated, the school should take prompt and appropriate disciplinary action pursuant to the law and report criminal conduct to law enforcement if appropriate. The school district may establish a procedure for referring a victim and perpetrator for counseling when bullying is suspected or when a bullying incident is reported. The procedure can include, but it isn't limited to, counseling and support to address the needs of the victim, research-based counseling and interventions to address the behavior of the students who bully or harass others, research-based counseling or intervention, which includes assistance and supports for parents or legal guardians if deemed necessary or appropriate. Act 861 also requires that all complaints and investigative reports be maintained for 3 years. If a school system fails to act, parents or legal guardians can appeal. If a student, parent, legal guardian, or school employee may report a bullying incident to the school district if the school official doesn't take timely and effective action to address the incident. The school district or governing authority must begin an investigation of any complaint that bullying that is properly reported the next business days in which the school is in session. If the school district doesn't take timely and effective action, the student, parent, or a school employee may report the bullying incident to the Louisiana Department of Education. The parents or legal guardians may request a transfer to another school if the parent, legal guardian, teacher, or other school official has made 4 or more reports of separate instances or bullying and no investigation has occurred. The school district must make space available for the student at another public elementary or secondary school under its jurisdiction within 10 school days of the transfer request. If no other school that serves the bully student's grade level is available within 15 days of the transfer request, the superintendent or head of the school district must facilitate the student's enrollment in a statewide virtual school or offer the student placement in a full-time virtual program or virtual school. The school district may enter into a memorandum of understanding with another school district to secure placement and transfer for the bullied student. If none of the above options are made available to the student within 30 days of the transfer request being made, the parent or legal guardian may request a hearing with the school's governing authority. The hearing must be granted for the next scheduled meeting or within 60 days, whichever is sooner. The parent and legal guardian may request at the end of any school year that the student be transferred back to the school in which the student was enrolled when at least 3 of the bullying reports were made. The school district must make space available for the student at the school where the student was originally enrolled. No other school will qualify for the transfer back. In addition to what we've already talked about, the following is required. There is supposed to be a program to provide a minimum of 4 hours training for new employees who have contact with students and 2 hours of training each year for all school employees who have contact with the students, including the bus operators with respect to bullying. The training shall include how to recognize behaviors defined as bullying, how to identify students at each grade level in the employee school who are most likely to become victims of bullying, how to use appropriate intervention and remediation techniques and procedures, the procedures by which incidents of bullying are to be reported to school officials, information on suicide prevention, including the relationship between risk factors and bullying. The LDE shall develop a behavior incidents checklist to document the details of each reported incident of bullying. The LDE approved reporting form must be used on the LDE website. So that form has to be used. Let's see, we went over a lot of information about how schools must address bullying. Did the policy information address bullying adequately? Is there anything missing? Y'all hit me up in the chat. Or any other questions.
I don't see anything yet.
I know there's a lot of details,
Oh, here we
and it
go.
might be clear as mud, but you're going to
Uh,
get a copy of this. What's up,
and
Wallace?
so we see one that says, as things evolve, I think there will be, unfortunately, always be something missing. And I guess that might be true because of different technology and devices and things. And I guess as we as humans, it's hard to cover everything. But
And
I
they did
think
their
it's pretty
best to
thorough,
cover
though.
everything.
Yeah, I
But
think it's
yeah,
pretty thorough.
yeah, you never know when there's something out there on the horizon that nobody's even thought of yet. Yeah,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Okay. Guess we'll move on.
All right. When you discover your child is being bullied, you're going to feel a variety of emotions from anger to fear to sadness. Those reactions and emotional responses are natural for parents who want their children to feel valued, protected and loved. To become an effective advocate for your child, it's important to acknowledge your emotions and then focus on developing an action plan to help your child. When you first talk to your child about bullying, be prepared to listen without judgment and provide a safe and supportive place where your child can work out his or her feelings. Children might not be ready to open up right away because they too are dealing with the emotional effects of bullying and may be feeling insecure, frightened, vulnerable, angry, or sad. When your child begins to tell their story, just listen and try really hard to avoid making judgmental comments. It's important to learn as much as possible about the situation, such as how long the behavior has been happening, who has been involved, and what steps have been taken up until this time. Encourage your child to talk and let them know they're not alone and that you're there to help. Make sure your child knows bullying isn't their fault, they're not to blame, and that they're not alone. You're here to help, and that it's the adult's responsibility to make the bullying stop. Bullying is never okay, and they have the right to be safe. Make sure they know that no one deserves to be bullied, that they deserve to be treated with respect, and they have the right to feel safe at school. After hearing your child's story, you want to empower them to create an action plan to help stop the bullying. Talk to your child about ways you can support them as well as intervention strategies they can use, such as working with the school or advocating on their own. Creating a plan that works with your child's strengths and abilities can help build self confidence and resilience. Make sure to share those agreed upon strategies with those involved in your child's life, like teachers, coaches, and other adults who interact with your child on a daily basis. Please don't tell your child to stand up to the bully. That can imply it's your child's responsibility to handle the situation. While there's a ring of truth to the statement, being assertive is often a good response. Sending your child back into the situation without further information will probably cause more harm. A more effective response is to brainstorm options with your child about what you can do as a team to respond to the situation. Then don't tell your child to ignore the bully. That's a whole lot easier said than done. Your child has probably already tried ignoring the situation, which is a typical response for children. If that method had been effective, there wouldn't be any need for them to seek your help. It's difficult to ignore someone who is sitting behind you or on the bus or next to you in class. In addition, if the student who is bullying realizes their target is purposefully ignoring them, it can actually ignite further bullying, since that response provides the sense of power and control that the student seeks. Then don't take matters into your own hands. A normal gut response from parents is to try to fix the situation and remove their child from harm. For example, a parent might call the parents of the student who is bullying or directly confront the bully. Remember, when children tell a parent about bullying, they are looking for the parent to guide them to a solution that makes them feel empowered, involve them in the process of determining the next steps. Typically, calling the other parent or directly confronting the bullying student is ineffective. We spent this training on teaching your rights. So, go back to the PowerPoint. Use this training. You can go back to the law. Um, think through who else should be involved. In addition to being supportive and empowering your child to write down a plan, it can be helpful to document the steps you plan to take or have already taken. Written records provide history of incidences and responses, which can be helpful when addressing the issue with school administrators or law enforcement. You should create a strategy for how to involve others that can help your child. That might include determining who you will contact at school, what you plan to ask them, how you plan to be involved. It also might include contacting a school counselor or other health professional for advice. If the situation doesn't change, your plan might include steps to contact local law enforcement or legal counsel. Finally, help your child create an action plan. The person who has been bullied should be involved in deciding how to respond to the bullying. This participation can provide students with a sense of control over their situation. and help them identify someone who is willing to listen, take action on their behalf, and reassure them their opinions and ideas are important. If your child has an IEP, the IEP can be a helpful tool in bullying prevention plan. Every child receiving special education is entitled to a free appropriate public education, FAPE. And bullying can sometimes become an obstacle to receiving that education. The IEP team, which includes the parent, can identify strategies that can be written into the IEP to help stop bullying. It might be helpful to involve the child when appropriate in that decision making process for the IEP. Some of those strategies can include identifying an adult in the school who the child can report to or go to for assistance. It could be determining how school staff will document and report incidents. It could be allowing the child to leave class early to avoid hallway incidents. It could be holding separate in services for school staff and classroom peers to help them understand a child's disability. It might be educating peers about school district policies on bullying behavior. It might be ensuring regular reassurance from the school staff to the student that he or she has a right to be safe and that bullying is not his or her fault. It also could include shadowing by school staff of the student who has been bullied. Shadowing could be done in hallways, playgrounds, classrooms. When talking with your child's IEP team, consider what strategies, with those listed above as a guideline for ideas, might be effective for them to address bullying. Regardless, what is added to the IEP for bullying prevention, make sure you add this to your parental concern section of the IEP. If you we're doing navigating the IEP part two. Um, but yeah, we're doing a whole series on the IEP that you might be interested in. But the parental concerns is a good place to put it. Okay, here's a list of numerous resources we mentioned in today's training. Link to those resources will be provided in the information you're going to get after you complete your evaluation. And more um, resources. This is bullying prevention websites, and all have a lot of great resources for parents, teachers, and students. And let's see, am I doing the same things over again? Maybe. Yes, anyway, there's a bunch of different resources, handouts. Now, it's time for my evaluation. I want to request that everyone complete his or her evaluation. Wallace will put a link in the chat box. You'll also get a link in an email. You don't have to do it twice. It helps us improve our training, which is important to us. You'll get the PowerPoint, the handouts, and send us an email if you want that certificate of attendance. And I am at the end. We are at the Q&A part. Hopefully you've learned some new things. Do you have any questions that haven't been answered? Ask them now in the chat. We want to thank you again for being here and remind you to check out our upcoming webinars. We have several of them this month on our website. Wallace, we got any Q&A or?
Okay. Okay, here we go. It says, what if the student says adult is bullying? And then they say thanks. What if the student says an adult is bullying?
So then that's when you start going up the chain of command, depending on the adult's position in the child's life. So, for example, if it's a special education staff, in some way, you would go up that chain of command. If it's regular education, then you would go up that chain of command. Um, and that requires a different discussion that you might want to call us about.
Okay, then someone asked, where do we email for the attendance certificate? And
You
I
can,
put in our email address, info@FHFSWLA.org. That's our general email box. You can email that and we'll make sure you get us attendance certificate.
but I think my email is on the beginning of the PowerPoint too. Let me check real quick. You could
Yes,
email
ma'am.
you could email me directly, but like Wallace said, if you email that info um uh, uh address, there's several of us that will see it. Either way. Or if you email the info address and you don't get an answer, email me directly. Sometimes things get really busy.
And then I put your email in the chat box too.
Thank you, Wallace.
So they got both of them. All
Groovy.
right, let me scroll back up, see if I missed any questions. Okay. And I don't see any more comments or questions. Thank you everyone for attending this webinar. You have any closing remarks, Melinda, before we go?
Nope, I done talked myself out.
All right.
Y'all
Again,
let me know
everyone,
if you need something.
thank you for attending this webinar. We'll send you a follow-up email with all our resources that we mentioned in this webinar. Have a nice rest of your evening, everyone. Bye-bye.